Today, we are doing a 2-round 2026 NFL mock draft. Let's get right into this. If you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Blow my face on my board. These are the players I love in the order I love them. It is not predictive. It is solely based on all 22 grades, and it's being continuously updated if you want to see the full list, as well as every single breakdown. I did a week by week of the stock up, stock down players that are longer than the videos on the show, and even more. Feel free to go join the Patreon. It's $5 a month. If you guys like the quarterback video that came out, I did a top 10 for the YouTube show. I ended up doing an extended top 21 for the Patreon. So go check that out as well. You get them early, and of course, you get them more often than what you can do over here. I want to be able to make sure I give you guys all amazing content to enjoy, and this is something that I love. You guys enable me to be able to have an awesome life, so I want to be able to give back to you. Let's get into this. Starting out with the number one pick. There are no trades in this, and are there any assumptions? I don't believe we're going to be going under any, except for the fact that this is going to come back to bite me in the ass. But you know what? There's a reason we do a mock draft with trades versus a mock draft without. We're not having Dante Moore returning or Dante Moore coming out in this. We're going to have him return because I'm going to put myself in a very uncomfortable situation that I've been trying not to do. And there's a strong chance he comes out. They're logically speaking, between you and me, I think he should just come out anyways. I think the Jets would be a really solid location for him to sit and grow. But at the time that I'm recording this video, there are a lot of players who are returning to Oregon. Raiola ended up saying he's going back, but he also had a late injury, and he said he's fine sitting behind Moore. So I think there's a really strong chance he ends up going back, and especially if they can get Jordan Seaton in the building, I think there's a really good chance Dante Moore sees this as the opportunity to have a lot of success at Oregon and then make that jump again into the NFL. A lot of us assume that he would just not be as good as some of the other quarterbacks that are in next year's class. I think we continue making that mistake, thinking that everybody continues to get better at the same rate. And we kind of neglect the fact that Dante Moore could also get better at that same rate. So, there's a poor track record of quarterbacks with low experience in the NFL. I think, or low experience coming into the NFL and how they ended up turning out. So I do think that it's possibly very smart for Dante Moore, given that the situation is right, for him to be able to return back to school. So we're going to test out the theory today. Number one, Las Vegas Raiders. Again, we're going through both rounds, no trades. That's just the one stipulation. Dante Moore not coming out in this because I want to make it difficult for myself at number two, and it's kind of fun to play the theory out because it is a realistic possibility based on what we heard during the regular season and how Dante Moore essentially was already thinking almost guaranteed to return to school. Fernando Mendoza's number one pick. Let's not spend too much time on it. I have boosted him up noticeably. He is tied to be my top 5 player in the class, and you guys know me. I have a very hard time valuing quarterbacks as high as everybody else does. I do think that quarterbacks are extremely volatile. It's not easy to be a quarterback in the NFL. And if you are not a starting quality quarterback in the NFL, a top 20, I don't think you hold very much value. So a lot of the quarterbacks that I don't think match that, I don't really put very high. But even the quarterbacks that do, I think there's enough fluctuation there to where maybe some other players could have a better impact. But for the Raiders specifically and the Raiders-specific board, they need quarterback now more than ever. And Fernando Mendoza coming out at the perfect time, multiple years of success at different programs and getting better and better and better year by year. It's pretty clear that he's the number one pick. And, to me, he finally edged out Dante Moore right before I did my quarterback video. But being able to watch him head to head, it was great to see. Well, for Moore, it looked like he still had some pre-immature slip-ups, which was my big concern with him. With Mendoza, it looks like he's learning from those mistakes that he was having some sloppy errors during the early to mid part of the season. So love seeing that mid-season progression, huge thing for me. And, he's continuing to climb, love the personality. And he's definitely the type of guy that you want to hit your wagon to. Apparently he's worth a 4th round grade, but I mean, even when I was at my lowest on him coming into the year, he was my QB3 and the top 2 quarterbacks above him ended up returning to school. So he is the one who remains number one out of those who ended up declaring. Number 2, though, for the New York Jets, again, no trades, no Dante Moore. This is where things get very, very interesting. And I try my best to keep things realistic with my own twist on them. And so I don't think a wide receiver would be worth it at 2. It's a very uncomfortable spot. The thing is, do you believe Arvell Reese could be an edge rusher? If he can, and he has the run defense capabilities, I think he could be the pick here at 2. If you think he's a linebacker, then the NFL has shown time and time again that they're not going to value Arvell Reese at this rate. I love Caleb Downs. He is my number one player in the class. Safety does not go that high pretty much ever. And it's very difficult to justify that. It really is very difficult. And I will say, when I talk about top tier, I mean, running back is one of them, but tight end specifically, how you have to draft them, pretty high in like the first round to get access to the elite ones. Safeties, for some reason, actually become available more often than what their value necessarily says they should. So I don't think that you're buying into exclusivity here. I will say though, with Arvell Reese, if you think of him as a pure edge rusher, he does have the physicality to be able to play the run extremely well, and it does add that pass rushing element, a long term starter for you guys. I think it'd be very smart to take a shot on Arvell Reese if, again, with no trades and no Dante Moore. Like, I think that's the way to go. So we're going to go after Arvell Reese to be our edge rusher for the future. I just don't see anybody else being in the NFL's eyes really like worth it at that point. I love Ruben Bain Jr. You see where he is on my board. He has under 31-inch arms. And I know Arvell could end up having similar issues. However, Arvell has a different path. With Ruben Bain, a lot of people are talking about him more as like a Brandon Graham style. And with Arvell Reese, we're talking about him more as like the Micah style. And not saying that's the comp for the two. I'm not a huge fan of comps. I really wish I were. I think I'd be a little bit more popular as an evaluator if I had a little bit more balls in certain areas of comps rather than, just the fact that I like certain players more. But I'm the type of guy who prefers to, when I say a comp, it really means something. And that's just not really common nowadays. And God bless those who have the guts and the understanding to be able to make those comps better than I can. But with Arvell, it's the vision for what his role will be. With Ruben Bain, it's the vision, and I love them both. I just think Arvell would end up being, defensive coordinator's dream because you're buying into somebody who has an elite vision to be one of the best players in the NFL versus Ruben Bain is going to be a little bit more of a project. And apparently some people had round 2 grades on Ruben Bain. So I'm also kind of factoring that in. Number 3 for the Arizona Cardinals. This is a hot one, but we're going to be going after offensive tackle here, because at number 3, it's hard to say CC Maui Noah goes in this range, but this is something I was saying, and I'm glad that he's continued to do it, and he'll actually move up a little bit more on my board when all is said and done. I need to bump him up a little bit more because similar to how I'm talking about Fernando Mendoza having an elite postseason, CC Maui Noah is as well. Like, he's getting red hot at the perfect time. Like, he does have, I mean, there's certain points where, he's not necessarily the best on earth, but he's been doing extremely well for the fact that Miami was with their back against the wall. He's been their absolute cornerstone. Like, he is rock solid. This team needs a right tackle. I prefer Spencer Fano. However, I think CC Maui Noah could probably outclass him. I mean, I'm not really against it. And just for full transparency, you guys can't see this column, which is right next to the school column. So I have my exact grades right here. CC is at 78.75. That is right below blue chip tier. And then Spencer Fano is an 80.25. So they're literally 1.5 points apart. It is so damn close. And I will say this about CC Maui Noah. I've seen him in person, and he passed the eye test. I don't know how valuable that is because I haven't seen enough players over my time studying to be able to say how reliable the eye test is. All I will say is guys who don't pass it, they do have a pretty poor rate of succeeding. And I say the guys who do pass it, they do have, like, I would say I trust it, but I'm not going to like base my sole opinion on it, if you guys get what I'm saying. There's still a lot more guys I need to watch in person before I get to that point. But with how red hot he is, I do think that he's going to carry a lot of momentum into this range. And we've seen back-to-back years with shorter arm offensive linemen that it's not the end-all be-all based on how they end up playing in the system they're in. We'll, of course, see, obviously coaching, strategy, scheme, all that will definitely matter. But again, with no Dante Moore there, for the Cardinals fans who missed the start of the episode, it makes a ton of sense. Of course, if Dante Moore is on the board, he would have went at 2. Again, just got to throw that out there. I'm going to definitely put it in the title. So you guys, if you guys missed that, I'm giving y'all a lifeline here. All right. But at number 4 for the Tennessee Titans, there's 2 players I'm convinced to take here. There's 3. So Ruben Bain provides an extreme floor for the defense. I mean, really, really reliable edge rusher. I love him to death. I got a hiccup. But I think Ruben Bain, the only problem is, people's perception of him coming into the playoff. With CC, there were still talks about him being a potential top 5, top 10 player. That's that. With Ruben Bain, not many people were at that point. And again, Dane Brugler, who has better connections than you, better connections than me, he was talking about how actual NFL scouts were saying round 2 grade. So it's tough to say he's going to go top 5. Maybe he'll go like top 10, top 15, but it's just very tough to when you start breaching into these higher and higher tiers. The players who I'm really thinking of, though, is Jeremiah Love is the dark horse. I mean, we've seen that the running backs from this past year pretty much all hit. Amari and Hampton look like a stud. Obviously, there's some injury bugs in there. Ashton Genty behind his garbage offensive line did surprisingly very well. And again, there's a lot to blame on that awful offensive line. And then you look at Trey Henderson. Ended up having a slow start and then boom, looked amazing. Quinshon Judkins, hoping he recovers from that leg injury, but looked fantastic. There's so many running backs, and I'm leaving guys out as well. A lot of really good running backs, and the NFL is very trend heavy. And part of me wants to say, because this is such a bad class, that we could go after a running back here in Jeremiah Love and kind of just fire and forget. However, this team needs a number 1 wide receiver so badly. Like really badly. And I would say it's easier to find a legitimate high tier back round 2, round 3. It's not that easy, especially in this running back class, but it's a hell of a lot harder to just come by a number 1 receiver every year. And Cam Ward's looking damn good. I'd prefer to invest in Cam Ward and give him the weaponry and allow maybe running backs to, maybe hit or miss rather than continue juggling a lot of lower tier wide receivers and letting Cam Ward elevate them. I'd rather have a great receiver that Cam Ward elevates to an elite level than the other way around. So I'm going to look at Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate here. I think they're the top 2. Jordan Tyson, the big concern is, can he stay healthy? All of his injuries, not necessarily linked to one another. Could it be bad luck? Could he be made of glass? We don't know. And some guys come to the NFL with no injury history and end up having a lot of injury issues. It is kind of a coin toss when it comes to health. But I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor. If you are a doctor, power to you. But I don't really think that we're okay to say this is something that bothers us, but it's not, I think, okay for us to be like, well, this will disqualify him because of this. I think we can guess, but we don't know about it. But Carnell Tate's been ridiculously reliable. I mean, my only concern with him is, again, recency. The final game leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth because Carnell was not present in a game where Jeremiah Smith dominated. And he's been great, but I do think it showed that he's not a guaranteed 1. The way that Jordan Tyson's been dominant every single time he's touched the field. I'm going to roll the dice on health because I think the talent supersedes it. And number 5 for the New York Giants. Caleb Downs, a really good option. A lot of people want to talk about how the line was like 9th in pass protection. Jax Dart took still a ton of hits. I mean, I trust the offensive line development 100%, but we can't lie to ourselves in the fact that, building a better offensive line is not a bad idea. And you want to be able to help out the interior of the offensive line. I think that's a very good idea. However, I think Marcus Bowe should be somebody, friend of the show, should be somebody that we end up, testing out in that category. I will say, though, you guys have been pounding the table for this, and I'd be a little bit of an idiot not to listen. Best player available is not a bad idea at all. With Caleb Downs, he is just the definition of reliable. And New York is kind of a fishbowl. There is full transparency. You're getting, eyes are on you from the moment that you touch the field. And instant feedback is really, really important. Now, I think with all the injuries that have happened on the offensive side, Carnell Tate makes a ton of sense here. But I do think you have enough weapons to where it is possible to try to go for, and again, like a tier 2 wide receiver. You talk about Elijah Surratt. I mean, him at 37, now it's not crazy for him to be in the early second talks. I think there was a stat saying he had 8 third down touchdowns, and the second highest in the whole country was 4. So he lapped the second best. This guy's the definition of reliable. I think he'd be a great choice for you guys in round 2, which we'll discuss when that time comes around. But we're going to go Caleb Downs here. And again, I'd be a fool not to listen to people like you guys who watch this team every single week. I try to watch every single game because I really do love football to death. I hope you guys see that. But I love you guys more. You guys are a fan of 30 or of one team. I'm a fan of 32. I try my best, but you guys have even better insight than I could ever have, and better insight than a lot of these people who like to talk like they're actual analysts online. No shade to them at all. But at the end of the day, if you're watching one team, looking at every single interview, every single this, every single that, you're going to know more. Maybe you don't process it as well as maybe some people who can do more with a little bit of less. Like, I know a lot of great individuals. Shout out to Football Analysis, my boy Garrett. I mean, he's somebody who analyzes every single game, like looks at every single player. He's a damn genius with the amount of work he does and the amount of memory he retains. That franchise guy, obviously Broshmo. Like, there are some incredible people who I think can outclass, 99% of people. But when you guys are a true super fan of your team, you guys catch my blind spots better than anything that they say. So God bless y'all. I love y'all. That's why I want to respond to every single person who leaves a comment. If you invest your time and energy into me, I want to be able to do it for you. But number 6 overall, Cleveland Browns. Again, just like the title is going to say, Dante Moore. This is the theory of him returning. It could bite me in the ass, but I think it's really fun to, test these theories out. But I think the quick option here is either Carnell Tate or Spencer Fano. Like, you just got to get one of the two. Offensive line at number 24 is going to be there. Wide receiver probably won't. That's my concern. So I'm going to go Carnell Tate here, wide receiver out of The Ohio State University. I don't think you need a true super one the way that, the Titans, I think, are kind of desperate for it. I do think the wide receiver core is ass, but I think Carnell Tate's still going to elevate it in the way that, like, you're going to be happy with the value you get from number 6. Again, not a fan of how, the Miami game went in terms of the fact that when the true number 1 ended up producing, he didn't end up kind of being like a very dangerous target. But, overall, this entire year has shown enough to where I'm not necessarily going to be doubting him. At number 7 for the Washington Commanders, I'm going to run this one to the podium. I'm going to go Ruben Bain Jr., edge rusher out of Miami. He's been ridiculous. Again, there's some second round grades apparently out there on him. He's top 5 on my board, has been the whole time. And, well, he was at number 11 when the year started. Let me just be completely clear. But based on how everybody ended up returning and stuff, he still would have ended up, when all is said and done, being in the top 5 to 10. So, fantastic player. Again, sub 31-inch arms, not ideal, but I will also say not many players have the skill set, the strength, the power, everything that Ruben Bain has. So there's not a very large sample size to say, oh, this player doesn't work in the NFL. It's oversimplified. You got to take out the players who don't have any sort of similarities to Ruben Bain, who just have the similarity of arm length. And I think he's going to be a great asset for a team that's desperate to get something right on the defensive side. At number 8 for the New Orleans Saints, again, Dante Moore considered returning in this. Again, it's a theory. There's nothing official on it as of the recording of this video. But Jeremiah Love, Peter Woods are the quick, easy options. A lot of people want to throw Keldrick Falk in there. I just pray for you guys that that's not the case. And it's not like throwing shade at Keldrick Falk. I've liked Keldrick Falk the whole time. I have thought he's probably a little bit overrated the whole time. But, I do think that he's just not impactful enough. I think that you guys are at a point where, like, there's a little bit of a spark. Like, are you going to just play it safe and just dump some logs on top of it? Or are you going to get the fucking flamethrower? You're going to get the torch and you're just going to try to blow the fuck out of what you got with superpower. Like, I think with Keldrick Falk, it's just like, oh, let's just, in case something catches fire, we at least have a little bit more fuel there. Why not ignite that fucking ember? Let's go after Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. Alvin Kamara, unfortunately, is not the asset that we kind of want him to be. And Jeremiah Love is the future in that way. You're going to be investing in Shuck. The way that Jeremiah Love is pretty much an every down game changer at his frame as well. He is a ridiculous athlete for 6'2", 215. He is a ridiculous athlete for that size. And so you have the home run hitting ability. He can work as a receiver. Like, there's a lot that he will impact. The offensive line is a lot closer to completion than maybe like I want to admit, but that's a great thing, right? Like, Tali Fuaga was a big my guy. If you guys have been following the show for a while, you guys know that that was a crazy dart throw by me. That was a fucking Hail Mary that ended up working. But Banks has done a phenomenal job, especially for the fact that I had some reservations, blew him out of the water. He's been fantastic. So you have a young, dynamic, awesome tackle duo. The interior offensive line can be repaired in a way that I feel very comfortable having a successful rookie season from Jeremiah Love. And if you look at the 2027 mock I just did, I do have a lot of faith in the Saints for them to be able to take the division and make a push at the playoffs. Maybe not like a legitimate push, but regardless, I still think Jeremiah Love would be an awesome way to just give the offense the best possible outcome. And again, Kellen Moore ended up having such a great season with Saquon Barkley. I do see the option of going running back there with Jeremiah Love and it paying off. Number 9 for the Kansas City Chiefs. So a couple routes you can go here. Again, like, a lot of people are going to ask like why David Bailey falls in this, and I'll discuss it at pick 10 because he's not in the equation for Spags defense. Of course, Spag could be hired somewhere else. I highly doubt it. It's been a lot. he's been around the block, but I would say the best option for this team probably is going to end up being Keldrick Falk. With the way that people are talking about Kenyon Sadiq being a possible top 10 pick, and it's not going to be the selection for me right here, I think that the reason why every single person in the media that is like big is randomly saying it is A, the agents like to toss in that cash. They like to flash money, but B, they're thinking about Kansas City. That's the team that they're thinking about, right? Now, I think it would be brilliant for the Chiefs to trade back and draft Kenyon Sadiq. That's my take. So keep that in mind, but I'm not willing to take him here at number 9. I think Keldrick Falk is going to be the choice. It's very similar. Like, so while there's a spark for the Saints, the Chiefs are like some dying embers, and there's not much foundation there that makes me overly comfortable with just trying to ignite it with something crazy, unless you can end up pulling off what I ended up doing in the 2026 mock that led to the 2027, where I got Jeremiah Love and I ended up getting Kenyon Sadiq. That's how you can end up retooling and rebounding. We're not going to have that possibility with 9 and 40. I need to make sure this team actually remains competitive. And because there's a lot of things that are going on in the air right now, I think we need to end up getting somebody who is extremely high floor here. Again, I blend my board with realism. I try my best to like give you guys a mock draft that is representative of what people are saying right now. I'm not a big Keldrick Falk guy in terms of him being a top 10 pick, but apparently people extremely value the flexibility, the versatility, the size, and the youth and the run defense floor. That's going to be valuable to the Chiefs. And there's not a ton of edge rushers in this class. Mateo Uiagalelei is like a big one at number 40 that I would have went after for the pass rush upside that fits the Spags profile. He's no longer in the draft class. So there's just a lot of players in there that you start having to chip away to where you see what guys are going to fit this system down the line. And so there's going to be some concerns there, but we're going to go Keldrick Falk at number 9 and see how everything pans out. Number 10 for the Cincinnati Bengals, you got David Bailey here that a lot of people are going to want. David Bailey does have some off-field red flags. You do your own research. I always have to mention that. One particular individual ended up having an issue with the fact that I bring it up. If you have an issue with me when I'm giving a background on a player saying a reason why, like, there's a possibility of him falling, you're pretty much just calling yourself out as an idiot. Like, I'm just going to be completely transparent there. Like, if you're afraid of acknowledging something that could be a concern that hasn't been answered, that makes you a bit arrogant and a bit of an idiot. So Hopefully, those individuals have kind of like course corrected and understand that, if there is something that could be a red flag that isn't necessarily popularly understood, that it's understandable to question it. And so I'm going to bring it up until it's something that's more of a popular understanding. Like, it's not me just making up bullshit. I have my own research out there. Do your own research. There's two events over the past 2 years that have ended up causing, for me, who's a huge fan of David Bailey coming into the year, to question how much I really trust his overall standing right now. Because we look at the talent, but interviews are going to come in, and I can guarantee you these two incidents are going to come up. So for me, I'm going to go Peter Woods. I think Al Golden loves defensive interiors. I know Al Golden loves defensive interiors. He used them extremely well at Notre Dame. This is a high value position that has a lot of flexibility because Peter Woods has played edge rusher before as well. I like being able to get best player available. And to me, that is Peter Woods there at number 10. Number 11, Miami Dolphins. Let's speed this up a little bit. And, I think the Dolphins have a lot of routes they can go. We'll see what, again, the vision is with the coaching and all that. Spencer Fano is an intriguing choice here. I don't think that it's a bad option, but I do think that, at the end of the day, they're going to look at a strong boundary corner. When you look at what's going to be available at 43, it's very tough to justify like any other position. Like, you talk about getting a wide receiver here, but it's just not very easy to do when you have a top tier corner like Mansour Delane, who I think is going to be viewed by some well, by some a little bit poorly because of the arm length, but the production makes sense. He's going to end up dominating the NFL. His floor is Andrew Phillips. Like, that's what it's going to be. His play style, very similar. Both played on the boundary. Both end up having shorter arms. Like, that's the floor. Is if he has to go to the nickel, I think he'll be a high tier nickel. But you also have the upside of him being an awesome, fantastic boundary corner. And that has a lot of value in the NFL. We're going to go Mansour Delane at number 11. And again, remember, there are no trades in this, so that's going to be a big factor here. But for the Dallas Cowboys at 12, I kind of want to throw a curveball. I always go Sonny Styles or, one of the bigger edge rushers like TJ Parker. And I think there's definitely some reason for that. There's David Bailey as well, and I know this is going to piss off the Cowboys fans. I know it. You guys are going to talk about it. Honestly, David Bailey is a good pick for the Cowboys, though. I haven't done David Bailey for the Cowboys, I don't think, in a hot second. But they are an organization that is willing to look past some off-field red flags for talent. I mean, when they ended up drafting Micah Parsons, you got to remember back in the day, Micah Parsons was the first one I ever implemented the character concern falling rule, because he was like number 3 on my board, and I ended up having to drop him to like 6 or 7 because there was all these like rumors of some heinous shit that he was doing. And I mean, the Cowboys have drafted Josh Ball ended up doing some crap with his girlfriend, and it's like, of all the teams, they are kind of willing to look at what's just solely on the field. So you know what? I'll cave. I was gonna go after Spencer Fano for the Cowboys, but David Bailey's been extremely productive, the edge rusher at Texas Tech. It would be a little bit crazy to say that the Cowboys would, neglect the fact that he can end up really improving the pass rush game, which is going to be super important with, the fact they have interior pass rush. Now you can end up having a little bit better on the outside. But I do got to throw it in there. Spencer Fano, definitely somebody I would like to toss his name into the equation. The only reason why I think maybe David Bailey would be taken above Fano as well is because Fano has some potential to move into guard. And that's not something the Cowboys have open and available. Unless you want to kick Tyler Smith out to full-time left tackle and then end up, putting Guyton to right tackle. Like, that's something you could do, but that's a lot of moving pieces for another first-round offensive lineman. Number 13 for the Los Angeles Rams. If you're gifted this on a silver platter like Spencer Fano, I don't think that it's the worst thing in the world to go after. I do want to consider that pretty heavily. So the Rams are making their continuous push in the playoff. Like, I do think Jermon McCoy is a possibility here, but at 29, that's where the really good corners are. So I do like the idea of going wide receiver here. I don't want to be overly boring, but I do think it's a necessity. And being able to generate separation is extremely important for this organization. And Mekhi Lemon generates separation at a rate that most wide receivers in this class can't. And at 61, I don't really trust the value to be there for the Rams to get a separation generator. So it's either you go Mekhi Lemon for that, or you go Denzel Boston to be more of a possession receiver. But I do think with the way that contested catch wise, like I don't really believe Denzel Boston will be their cup of tea over Mekhi Lemon. So we're just going to stick with old but gold there with Mekhi Lemon. At 14 for the Baltimore Ravens, part of me wants to just go Spencer Fano because it's best player available and kick him into guard. I do think there's part of me that feels like that's disrespectful to Fano's ability as a tackle. And so we'll chew on that for a second. Because guard is something that I think this team needs to just fill immediately and kind of forget. Vega could go a lot higher than what we expect. He is an extremely high floor interior offensive lineman that deserves a lot of love. Now, I think there's also the ability to go after someone like TJ Parker, who's young, really talented edge rusher, maybe taken a little bit early, which is not necessarily what the Ravens do. Sonny Styles is possible here. It's not impossible actually at all. I mean, Eric DeCosta could easily just be like, going to take a player who has some safety traits and is going to be a monster linebacker next to Roquan for a long time. Let me know what you think about that. But, I'm actually going to go because guards go in this range. This is a spot where high floor guards usually go. So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to go after Vega here because I'm going to be so honest. Lele is ass. And it's so bad that I think just getting someone who's consistent is going to be the crucial part. And you're going to have a new organization coming in here. We'll again see what the type of system they're going to run and everything. But if you guys can end up drafting somebody to just provide a stable interior offensive line, again, fingers crossed, Lindy and stuff wants to be there long term, but this is a good way to kind of reestablish that floor. Number 15, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, quick and easy, Sonny Styles. I mean, he is the player who, again, I'm praying for the current system. He's a great fit, and this team is aging at an uncomfortably fast rate. So I think he's going to end up being a great fit there. And, linebackers in the mid-second are a little bit hit or miss. So this is going to be something where you're taking advantage of a really damn good opportunity. 16 for the Jets. Their first pick was Arvell Reese. Again, Dante Moore considered returning in this. Again, it's a fun theory to just kind of run on. But I do think that, you could go after the quarterback route with with Ty Simpson. At 16, it does feel a little bit early. I really like Ty Simpson, but similar to what I was talking about with Carnell Tate, but to an extreme degree, the last game left a really sour taste in all of our mouths. I think Denzel Boston is going to provide an insane asset to this roster. It's a guy who I've been going back to time and time again for the Jets. I think he's going to be invaluable as that possession receiver that you don't have right now. He's a great blocker as well. He's going to be an every down contributor. I think he's an absolute asset. 17 for the Lions. This one's quick and easy. Spencer Fano, right tackle out of Utah. We're going to kick Penny Sewell back to left. And again, with trades and stuff, I would have absolutely probably moved with the Rams and ended up doing some fun gymnastics. But for the time being, Spencer Fano ends up going to the Lions. Number 18 for the Minnesota Vikings. I think there's a strong chance Flores is gone. That's going to be a big hit. So I think Jermon McCoy makes a ton of sense here. Avion Terrell would be the guy if you end up retaining Flores. That's, again, big if. So, right now, it just makes too much sense to go the boundary corner route. It is a lacking position. Offensive line-wise, I think there are some guys that contribute. And again, the center spot, I definitely think that there's some room to breathe, room to improve. But I do think it's not worth it here at 18. Wide receiver Casey Concepcion's on my radar because Jordan Addison might not be in the building anymore. We'll see because he just has some shenanigans. I think he got caught for trespassing. Again, it might have been high apparently. I saw some stuff on it. I don't know enough about it. I'm just saying there's some that happened again with Jordan Addison. And Casey Concepcion kind of feels like the type of guy to replace Jordan Addison if that is to happen. And this is not a bad opportunity to gain an elite weapon who's a great separator, will help out your quarterback. This is under the assumption that Jordan Addison is moved. We're going Casey Concepcion here just to add some new flavor to the mock draft, but does have a little bit of a high drop rate, but he has been consistently separating. I do think that he would have been even more statistically productive if his quarterback were a little bit more precise. I'll just throw that out there. But number 19, Carolina Panthers, edge rusher and tight end. Like those are the positions, because I mean, I don't really trust the linebacker value here in the first round. Like Kenyon Sadiq feels like a Carolina Panther. Really great in short space. Very, very good work ethic. Run blocking, unbelievably underrated, because no one wants to talk about that as the asset for him. And it is something that the Panthers, like, you can't look at me in the face and say the Panthers have a top 20 tight end core. You can't. And you can't buy high tier tight ends. This is something you have to draft. So there's a lot of good edge rushers. I think at 51, we'll be able to find one. We're going to go Kenyon Sadiq here, tight end out of Oregon, and end up just getting yourselves somebody that you can't find on a year-by-year basis. Number 20 for the Dallas Cowboys, that first pick was David Bailey. And again, part of me thinks that I should have ended up going after my gut and going Spencer Fano and then going TJ Parker here. But it is what it is. I do think, again, with no trades, we got to go and fix that boundary corner situation. Jermod McCoy feels like the exact type of player that you would hope to end up working here. Savone Revel, think about how he tore his ACL and ended up being drafted to the Cowboys, and he's had some flashes there. Jermod McCoy, like, this team's not afraid of drafting corners with some potential red flags. Number 21, we have my Pittsburgh Steelers, who ended up getting kind of their ass kicked even by, CJ Fraud Stroud. And yeah, I mean, 30-6, not pretty, especially. I think CJ fumbled the ball 4 times in the first half. I think 4 times is the most ever in a game, and he did in a half. It's not pretty. And again, Dante Moore returning in this one. So our corner situation, we do need a true 2. But this draft is going to be in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin no longer with the team. Shout out to Mike. I mean, I had a probably 2-3 minute conversation with him a couple years ago, and obviously something I'll remember for the rest of my life. Extremely polite guy, super buttoned up. Obviously, everybody who knew him loved him. So I am in no way trying to, say good riddance, right? Never. I think he's a fantastic coach. And I think if your goal is to remain consistently competitive, he's like the best coach you can ask for. He's the definition of we're winning games, we're staying competitive, we're making or just barely missing the playoffs. But that's not the goal in the NFL. The goal is to go for a Super Bowl. And I don't think with the way that we've been as an organization running recently, we've been drafting extremely well, but we haven't been making the necessary moves in order to get us in Super Bowl contention territory, right? You see, we got rid of George Pickens. Yeah, there are some issues there, but sometimes you just put up with the bullshit. You know what team put up with the bullshit with a couple really damn good players who ended up being one of the best wide receiver running back duos in the 2010s? It's the Steelers. Antonio Brown, fucking nutcase. Le'Veon Bell. Selfish as all get out. If you put up with that, and yeah, there's some reasons why, like Big Ben was a part of it. Of course, the coaching ended up having a little bit more of a tighter grip on the roster. But if you can subdue those personalities, that's how you compete. And I just didn't feel like we had the balls to just say, screw it. We're going to take the risk. We ended up mitigating our risk. And that is what gets us here to mediocrity. So I do think that, we actually could end up taking a huge step back, but we also now have the opportunity to take a huge step forward. And that's going to be a great spot for us as Steelers fans. So wide receivers have already been taken. Don't think that's going to be an option. Neither do we draft wide receivers in the first round. A quarterback with Ty Simpson is very possible. I mean, NFL scouts love this guy. I would say that he might be a good opportunity a good chance. There's a good chance we can end up trying to take him if we wanted to trade back and, recomp some of our picks, maybe move up in another round and basically be able to, move some things around. Like maybe the Texans are like, oh, we really need to go after Emmanuel Pregnon or, go after Caden Proctor while you have a couple teams up here that are looking for him. And then, the Steelers can end up moving up from their 3rd rounder to their 2nd. There's some cool ways to be able to handle that. And honestly, I just pulled that out of my ass and Sounds like a pretty cool idea. We're not doing that. Again, no trades, but I do think that if you're sticking and picking, the best thing we can do is just get reliability on the boundary. Avion Terrell's a fantastic corner. Colton Hood's a fantastic corner. Brandon Sisse is a fantastic corner. All these guys have their respective strengths and weaknesses. Keith Abney, Chris Johnson. I mean, this is a studded class. Another reason why I would say the Steelers could try to recomp some of their picks and, maybe try to make a move up. But Avion Terrell just feels like an absolute savage. Like Joey Porter Jr., NFL bloodline, Avion Terrell, NFL bloodline. Like, there's also other guys in here who have really strong connections to the NFL, but Avion Terrell, to me, he's just a feisty savage at cornerback, and you need that mentality if you're in the AFC North. I don't know if any of the other corners necessarily have it to his degree. So we're going to go Avion Terrell there, corner out of Clemson, 22 for the Los Angeles Chargers. We're debating between Pregnon and Proctor here. I think the value of Proctor is that you can end up having him basically be the long-term Mekhi Becton, but also end up being able to fill in for the tackles as they end up getting back from injury. I don't think the NFL thinks that strategically. We're going to go Emmanuel Pregnon, guard out of Oregon here, and just solve the problem. He is my highest graded interior offensive lineman. He is someone who I have a huge fandom over. And yeah, I love Caleb Tiernan, but Tiernan has his own. He has to be in the right spot. I think he's very, very role specific. And Emmanuel Pregnon, I think, will fit this team like hand in glove. He's a fantastic player. Super happy with how he's been able to grow and produce. At number 23 for the Eagles, edge rusher is certainly something I'm really starting to think about. Boundary corner, I do think they should be looking at territory, but they've been filling that with vets and like lower tier options. I don't know if they're willing to go balls to the wall as much as I thought they did. I think edge rusher is like really, really crucial for them this past year. I know there's a lot of injuries that played a factor, but highest sack total was 6.5 sacks from Jalix Hunt. And we kind of need to try to at least make a push there. I don't know if Phillips will be retained. Like, he had some flashes, but for a particular price tag, we might not be able to see him back based on some of the other contracts that are there. I think TJ Parker's a great choice here. He's young, he's dynamic, he's high floor, but also has a really good ceiling. He's someone that I'd be perfectly fine with taking up as high as the top 15 for the right situation, and this is a great situation for him to go into. At number 24 for the Cleveland Browns, Caleb Lomu is the guy who I'm starting to think of here. Some people have him as their tackle one, but he also might end up being a guard to me. He's still just a reliable option who's worth being a top 20 pick for a team that needs to look at offensive line. Just took Carnell Tate. It makes a lot of sense. We're going to go Caleb Lomu there for the Browns. And number 25 for the Chicago Bears. Super happy that they're here. I want to look at some alternative options rather than just going after Caden McDonald. You guys did a really good job stuffing the run versus the Packers. And safety definitely is on the list. If Dylan Thieneman can test out well, I don't think that's very far off from a spot where you can end up looking for the long haul. Like, running back wise, I'm super happy to say that you guys are doing a damn good job maximizing your value there. Like, edge rusher, you could try to go back and like you got Cassius Howell here, but none of these guys fit the Dennis Allen build. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, Dennis Allen might not be there. I'd be kind of shocked. I mean, the way that you guys have been performing recently has been fantastic. I will say, honestly, there's not many positions I think would really the Bears health wise at corner, I think is kind of the bigger issue. I don't really think corner is as big of an issue as what we think. It's just mainly health, which you should be repleting that in the other rounds. I'm going to stick old but gold, boring Caden McDonald. We'll see how like serious the Trapilo injury was. That sucks because obviously you couldn't put any weight down, and we'll see if that changes how they end up approaching. Maybe they try to mitigate their risk by, going after a Caden Proctor where they can kick him to guard if need be with, aging left guard and Tooney. Like, there could be some mitigation there, but for right now, we'll stick with old but gold. 26 Buffalo Bills. I think that wide receiver is super important to them. The problem is, like, Surratt just might not. I don't think he's going to test well enough. Also, 46% contested catch rate. You look at his career and you look at how he's been able to dominate. That's not a translatable thing. I mean, he's better than that. And even the 40, if you're above 40%, that's a tip of my cap to you. So I'll just say that right there. There's still some really good wide receivers. I just don't think that we're seeing one that's worth it in round one. Edge rusher, again, it's very similar to the Bears. I don't really see any of the edge rushers available right now. Like, unless you want to just roll the dice on Akeem Mesidor super early, which I think is just not the best move, then you're kind of SOL. Like, it's a very uncomfortable spot. We've talked about this several times with the Bills. I think maybe we reach for a linebacker early and just pray that you can trade back. We're gonna go Josiah Trotter, redshirt sophomore out of Missouri. I think he's the next linebacker that goes early. There's a lot to love about Josiah coming downhill. There's a lot that I definitely think he needs to work on, but people talk about him as a top 50 pick. He's going to test out extremely well in a straight line. And, he has some of the freakier high level reps in the class. So for the fact that we aren't trading out this spot, I think it's a great opportunity. Number 27 for the Niners. We're going to go Caden Proctor. They have been playing an underrated level for the offensive line, but again, you got to have some type of contingency plan there for left tackle, and Caden Proctor just makes a little too much sense. 28, though, for the Texans. I mean, Caden Proctor can also kick into guard if need be. I honestly think that's okay to have a plan for him to rest. But 28 for the Texans. Interior offensive line, definitely high on my list. We do see Monroe Freeling as part of this class. I do want to toss him in here. He's someone who I was not expecting to be part of this draft class. Ended up declaring early. So that is something for us to discuss. But I mean, I think that's something where we're going to talk about him the late 1, early 2 range. And based on no trades, going to be probably the early 2 range. Because Monroe's not going to kick into guard for us. Like, we'd have to go after one of these guys, or you can talk about Caleb Tiernan, which is not something the Texans do. So they're not going to go after a Northwestern offensive lineman. So we're looking at other areas for the Texans to get their proper value. Again, it is kind of a team that needs to go offensive line early and often. It's a really weird spot. Like, I'm not a fan of this. Is actually a really ass spot. I honestly don't think that linebacker's off the page. I mean, if you talk about CJ Allen and Anthony Hill, these guys have crazy ceilings and they're looked at as potential first round players. I might get pan fried for this. Just screw it. We're going to go, well, hold up. I'm going to go after best player available. That still fits a need. I'm going to go Christian Miller. I like swinging for the fences. And I don't know how the hell he had a 90 run defense grade, but Christian Miller is that type of guy who's a freak athlete who ends up just, making your jaw drop. This is someone who I could see going as high as top 10. Like, he is somebody where if you watch the high level reps, this is a top 10 player. He's just somebody that, as a consequence, ends up going here at 28. And 29, Los Angeles Rams. So first pick was Mekhi Lemon. I was talking about corner before, still on it. Brandon Sisse, Colton Hood, those are the 2 players. Chris Johnson is in there, but here he's in the 4.55 range. We're going to go Colton Hood. Redshirt sophomore, dynamic athlete, very well built at 6 foot 195. Kind of hard to complain about him. At number 30 for the New England Patriots, Monroe Freeling is someone who comes to mind if you can try to move him to right tackle. It's just a dangerous game when you start trying to move guys like that. I just don't know if I'm comfortable with the idea of that after Monroe probably needed 1 extra year. But Cassius Howell does make sense for this team. Like, 250 pounds is the kind of way that Vrabel likes to go. Cassius is a feisty dude. He has short arms, but he has an amazing anchor for being, poor arm length and all that. It does feel like a type of guy that the Patriots would go after at number 30. So we're going to go after him there. Maybe you can trade back, get some extra draft capital, and still get him. But I think it's still a good pick nonetheless. At number 31 for the Denver Broncos, if you do retain Vance Joseph, which I think you will. I think that right now we're seeing too much of a trend toward, the younger offensive guys. Like, CJ Allen makes too much sense. He's a young thumper type of linebacker that he's just going to provide that floor on early downs. Watch out for him in coverage. He does have those games where he's allowed a lot of yards, but sometimes you just got to pull the trigger. And I just hope that, you guys can obviously retain Vance. If you can't, then we'll have to discuss how comfortable I am with the new system. At 32 for the Seahawks, again, another team I would say trade back because you have a low amount of draft picks. But if you have to stick and pick, that right guard spot definitely could be filled by someone like Caleb Tiernan. He is 6'7", though. It's going to be tough to try to put him in an Andreas Pete role. I don't think Kubiak's going to be there. I know it's very scary to think about, but at the same time, is I mean, you just need an offensive head coach at some point. But Mike McDonald is gonna be one of those guys where he's a little bit different in terms of being worth being the head coach as a defensive guy. Like he is fantastic. I do love the idea of continuing down this path of Brandon Cisse, cornerback out of South Carolina. The ceiling is there. The Texas A&M game scared the shit out of me. He is number 34 on my board, but the ceiling is absolutely there. You need him to be a solid boundary corner, and that's exactly what he could be. 33 for the Jets, Arvell Reese and Denzel Boston. This is where I'm going to take a possible shot on Ty Simpson because, again, it's an early third. With the defensive interiors, like Lee Hunter would probably be next. Like we did unfortunately get a little bit thinner at the top without Amari Washington in the group. Like I just don't really think we should be going after like Ant Hill at this point. And quarterback definitely should be at least on the mind. Like I do think the Browns could be at least intrigued in round 2. The Dolphins could be intrigued. So it's just a little bit too much before our next pick. And Ty Simpson, again, did have like some strong momentum being the best quarterback in the class in the middle of the year. Some things cooled off, but that's why you're getting him there at 33. Again, I try to do a micro trade back, but also I guess the Arizona Cardinals would be sitting here at 34, who drafted CeCe Maui Noah. They're in an uncomfortable quarterback situation themselves, but we at least addressed the biggest and baddest of the issues. Now, I think that Anthony Hill would be extremely fun to utilize. Again, I really need to see what the coaching staff's going to look like before I end up making those type of claims. Like that's kind of a big factor, right? Like, but it's cool for us to test out these theories. And again, obviously, hopefully you guys have realized by this point, Dante Moore is not in this class. Jadarian Price is an underrated option for this team. He is a home run hitting threat who has a lot of tread on his tires. He is dangerous. I think he'd work really well behind this offensive line. Again, I'd trade the F back, but I also do think that there's the opportunity to go after someone like a Damon Claiborne, who's a great home run hitting threat. Not many others in this class, if I'm just being completely honest. I'm trying to remember them off the top of my head, but this class is pretty bad at running back. Jadarian Price is a legit option. Let me know what you guys think about it, but I am going to go and just try to get a little bit more of a young core piece of the defense, and that's going to be Anthony Hill Jr. here, linebacker out of Texas. Number 35 for the Tennessee Titans. First pick was Jordan Tyson, and still some really good quality edge rushers here. Like, again, to be fair, it is a little bit depleted. Like Akeem Mesidor would be a great choice, but you'd have to be in competing mode for me to feel very comfortable with it. Like Deni Dennis Sutton, definitely somebody that if you want just consistency, but I always think of Deni as more of like an edge 3. Like that's my biggest thing. Part of me does believe we can end up just going after Jadarian Price at this point. Like you just overhaul the offense with Tyson and Price, and then just kind of like forget defense for the time being, which is a stupid move. I mean, we all know it's a dumbass move. Like forgetting the defense is not a good idea. Keith Abney, I'm going to go Chris Johnson this time. I always go Keith Abney. Chris Johnson is a fantastic corner. I know some people have him as high as their number 1 corner. Abney does have like a height restriction at 5'9", even though it says he's 6 foot. Apparently official measurements have him just above 5'9" at 5'9.5". I'm not going to say it's the worst thing in the world, but for some uniqueness sake, we'll have Chris Johnson be the option there. He's a smart corner. We'll again see the vision for the team and the coaching staff. Number 36, Las Vegas Raiders. First pick was Fernando Mingotza. I tried that there. It did not work. But anyways, I think that this team definitely has a lot of really high quality options. You could go after Chris Bell at this point. A lot of people are saying we need a true reliable one. And Chris Bell being able to heal up and come back, not a bad choice. Like, not a bad option at all. But the offensive line was ass. I just don't want to be that guy who drafts Blake Miller every time. We're going to go and we're going to take the risk because it's not a first-round pick. This is our second-round pick. We're going to risk putting Monroe Freeland to right tackle over Blake Miller. It is a risk, but Monroe, underclassman who's declaring, I think Blake Miller has a lot of big assets to him, but he also did have 2024 that was very, very scary. And Blake Miller does have some pretty god-awful reps, Monroe Freeling does have a little bit more of a consistent profile. So we're going to test him out there. He at least does have some right tackle experience. I totally forgot about that. So at least it's not going to be foreign to him, but we're going to test out that theory there. At 37 for the Giants, first pick was Caleb Downs. We'll see how much people are celebrating that versus ripping me a new one, but all love to you guys nonetheless. Wide receiver, this is where I'm comfortable taking a risk like Chris Bell. Like, you have enough guys coming off ACL tears, I agree. But at the same time, this is best player available. And think of the way that Chris Bell can complement Malik Neighbors. This is why you're taking him at 37. This is why he's available. So I'm going to go after him here for the Giants. Again, you're rolling the dice, but he's somebody who I was able to see in person, pass the eye test. He's a ridiculous player, and you're getting your own A.J. Brown, so to speak. Number 38, Houston Texans. First pick with Christian Miller. This one's going to be quick and easy. It's Jadarian Price, running back out of Notre Dame. Again, we're neglecting the offensive line, but we're going after a super weapon, and we're recharging this team to make it even more high-powered than it was before. And again, there's also free agency. So I'm not really bugging when it comes to that. Number 39, Cleveland Browns, Carnell Tate, Caleb Lomu. Super happy with how that ended up turning out. Again, this is a team that I don't really feel like has a ton of holes on the defensive side to where like I'm feeling the pressure to go after particular assets. I honestly might just go back-to-back wide receivers at this point. You got Carnell Tate. I'm thinking Elijah Surratt at this point. He's been very, very, very reliable overall. He's just built well. Him and Carnell Tate could be a nice 1-2 punch for whoever they're going up against. And it's just nice to get somebody reliable in the building, and being able to rehaul your whole wide receiver core could be that. Now, the question then you can pose is, what if we got Blake Miller and we got Caleb Lomu and we kind of retooled our entire offensive line? Or Caleb Tiernan and retooled our entire offensive line? I don't think that's a bad idea. I honestly don't. Actually, you guys know me. I love Caleb Tiernan. He did end up having, again, last game, sour taste in our mouth. Technically second to last game, allowed 7 pressures, which is just something he doesn't do. But we're going to roll the dice with Blake Miller here. We're just going to test out 35-inch arms, strong right tackle. We'll see if he can end up making it work in the NFL. But he had a really good 2023, really bad 2024, bounced back with a solid 2025. And now he's here at number 39, pairs up with Lomu for the future. Number 40 for the Kansas City Chiefs. First pick was Keldrick Falk. Kind of the boring, kind of pick. You could talk about Max Clare, who just declared. I do think he'd be someone who I'd try more for in round 3. Wide receiver, underrated position to target with a lot of the drama in the wide receiver core. But we could also try to just continue to address the certain positions that you need to look for. Now, there is a concern over, like, I've seen some people talk to me about like tagging and trading McDuffie. Keith Abney would be a really, really good selection in that case. Like, I would really like that for them, but I'm not ready to pull that trigger just yet. Like, part of me does think that you can end up trying to address more offensive line talent. This is an uncomfortable spot. This is a very uncomfortable spot. I would almost double up at edge rusher at this point, because running back's not there, tight end's not there, wide receiver's not really there either. We're just going to go after Keith Abney. I was about to give the Bengals Keith Abney on a silver platter, but we're going to take Keith Abney because he has the physicality that you guys look for. He feels a little bit, and again, emphasis on a little Trent McDuffie to him. Number 41, Cincinnati Bengals, first pick, Peter Woods. I'm happy with that. I think this is where we go Caleb Tiernan, because I'm happy with him at guard. You guys actually ended up being one of the more underrated pass blocking crews for the fact that, like, where you guys are. I actually am going to look at Connor Liu here, because he's going to need some time to come back from his ACL tear, but he is somebody that will end up being a high quality, reliable interior option for this team. And I do want to get that for you guys. We're going to go Connor Liu, center out of Auburn. So going trenches for Auburn there with Liu as well as Falk. Boring, but still reliable. 42, New Orleans Saints. Jeremiah Love was their first selection. And I do want to go after some pass rush here. There's a lot of very good choices. Like, you cannot go wrong. There's so many good options down the board as well. But you got R. Mason Thomas here, who I think is an absolute stud. Romello Height, I mean, you can't go wrong. I do think Romello Height is a little bit more pass rush focused than R. Mason Thomas, who I think is a little more well rounded. So I'm going to go R. Mason Thomas here, but you can't go wrong. I mean, this defense will continue to be reliable. R. Mason Thomas, there or not, will end up still being reliable enough. This is just a way to bring more talent in and elevate the defense under Brandon Staley. 43, Miami Dolphins. First pick was Mansour Delane. I think some reliability at wide receiver is not a bad option at this point, but I'm going to go Dylan Thieneman, defensive back out of Oregon. He's just a definition of reliable, similar to Mansour Delane. Some things are not ideal about him, but they're just damn good all around. So the Jets have gone Arvell Reese, Denzel Boston, Ty Simpson so far. I'm going to get ourselves a ball hawk. I'm going to just kind of cancel out any need for us to worry about the second level. We're going to Emmanuel McNeil Warren, safety out of Toledo. He's been reliable for Toledo this whole entire time, and he's just been getting better and better and better. So hopefully with the physicality that we have at boundary corner, we can end up being able to get some tips and end up getting some interceptions there with someone who can make the most out of that. 45 for the Baltimore Ravens. First pick was Vega, the guard out of Penn State. Second selection here, I honestly want to go Caleb Banks and just continue bulking up the defensive interior. Like, there's not many positions that I think the value's at this point. Like, we're not going to look at wide receiver in the way that, like, Elijah Surratt should be at least in consideration at this point. I should have honestly gone Elijah Surratt for the Raiders at this point, just because it would have been cool to have Mendoza back with his target. But, like edge rusher has some good value at this point. I don't know why I selected defensive interior at the same time. Akeem Mesidor makes a ton of sense for the Ravens in terms of providing that instant impact. And, let's reduce the amount of time for these edge rushers to make an impact on this team, or the players themselves. Vega's going to be an instant impact. Akeem's going to be an instant impact. And he's going to pair up extremely well with Mike Green as he develops into year 2. 46 for the Buccaneers. So many good choices for them to go. Took Sonny Styles in round 1. Like, you can't go wrong here. Guard is an underrated spot for them to go. Boundary corner, if you want to look at Julian Neal, that's some good value there, but he'll probably be a round 3 choice as much as I want to try to hype him up. Like, there's good choices everywhere. I do think, though, edge will be a very high likelihood, and you're trying to replace a 240-pound edge rusher. Romello Height does make a lot of sense here, but Joshua Josephs has those pterodactyl 34 3/4 inch arms. It adds up to 47 for the Indianapolis Colts, their first selection of the draft. They got to go after something that works here, and quarterback's just not on the ticket. I do think going after just the most high floor option with Lee Hunter, who's been a reliable run stopper, extremely powerful, could make a lot of sense here. But linebacker as well, boundary corner, honestly, Julian Neal at this point, and Davison Igbinosun is the dark horse. He just accepted a Senior Bowl invite. He ended up having a much better year this year than ever before. This team, if they end up losing Charvarius Ward to concussions, which his dad's literally telling him to retire, this is going to be someone who goes higher than expected. If the ranking's 156, I can guarantee you he's going to be in the top 100. And with being 6'2", 195, could end up having a monster Senior Bowl in the next couple weeks and end up kicking some ass. 48 for the Atlanta Falcons. This is their first selection as well. I think that going after a nose tackle is an underrated but required thing to do. Lee Hunter's 330 pounds, provides run defensibility and pass rush upside. It's a safe pick for a brand new regime. Number 49 for the Minnesota Vikings. First pick was KC Concepcion. I'm going to get ripped a new asshole for that one. But this pick, we can look at Julian Neal. I don't think that's a bad choice. Like, center-wise, I don't think anybody's here. Like, I'm not on the Jennings Dunker train anymore. I ended up reevaluating him, trying my best to like him. I could not. So I would honestly just look at defensive back at this point. AJ Halsey doesn't have the range for me. Zaki Wheatley does, though. We're going to go Zaki Wheatley. I love how he plays, the tenacity he ends up balling out with. Like, it sucks that he has 11.5 missed tackle rate. I think it was like 2 or 3% before, but He's just a reliable player there. And Penn State rarely leads you wrong. Number 50 for the Detroit Lions. First pick was Spencer Fano. Again, I always think about the edge rusher at this point. I think it's the most valuable thing this team can end up adding is a high quality edge too. And Muhammad is going to be taking his 10 sacks with him. I'm going to go after the boring pick here with Denai Dennis Sutton. Just, again, floor moves to be able to reestablish the floor. That's just kind of what you have to do when it's not really the focal point of your defense in the first place. And now you can end up taking some pot shots with maybe some more aggressive players later on. 51 for the Panthers. First pick was Kenyon Sadiq. Very happy to say that the linebackers and everything here are great. Jacob Rodriguez is a good pick. Jake Golday, I think, is a great pick. Take your selection here. I don't really care. I like Jake Golday more, especially coming downhill. He's been insanely reliable, and he's a damn good linebacker. I mean, he's 6'4", 240 versus 6'1", 235. Like, there's a lot of stuff to love about Jake Golday, and linebacker matters there in North Carolina. 52 for the Green Bay Packers, their first selection. Not many routes that are like necessarily bad for this team. Like, we'll see what vacancies come of free agency. Boundary corner Julian Neal makes a lot of sense. I would trade back for it. I love Velcro Ponds. You guys know this. I just don't think with him being 170, he's going to be a target here in the late second. Like, he could. Honestly, he could. I'm going to do it. After being such an awesome player and just dominating versus some of the biggest wide receivers, like, he got destroyed by Jeremiah Smith, as has everybody who's ever gone up against him. But he still lost with dignity. That's the thing. He didn't get bitched by Jeremiah Smith. He just got his ass kicked. So there's just a level to where there's still some respect there. In 53 for the Steelers, first pick was Avion Terrell. With the way corners flew off the board, I'm very happy with that. Elijah Surratt, he might not be the deep threat that we'd be looking for. Like, Omar Cooper Jr. is here as well. I really like him. I don't trust us to utilize him, just being completely honest. I'm going after Elijah Surratt, who's just, again, polished, reliable, consistent, someone not to really worry about. If the Eagles do get rid of AJ, Elijah Surratt would be a pretty cool option for them, but their first pick was TJ Parker. This is where I feel comfortable with the idea of interior offensive line for them. Like, you look at Chase Bazontis, that's a good choice, but I'm honestly looking at Caleb Tiernan. So we'll see what happens with Steen, but Tiernan could be a very similar situation. Not the most powerful player on planet Earth, but definitely not the weakest either. Good movement skills. He is a bit taller, but can kick into guard if need be. Has the tackle flexibility there as well. Just kind of best player available. And I'm very happy with just the floor picks that we've taken here. Just kind of, again, it's a team that has a lot of aging assets. You need to reestablish a floor of youth that I don't think they have right now, especially with the way Juergens has been playing. Who cares if he's a Pro Bowler? He's been ass. Just going to throw that out there. But if Jalen Phillips is gone, need to get that edge again. They've shown the need for that. And then offensive line, guard or tackle, you need to go and get your guy. Number 55 for the Los Angeles Chargers. First pick was Emmanuel Pregnon. Second pick here, I'm going to look at the nose tackle, and we're going to take the shot on Caleb Banks. People ask why he's not a first-round pick, because he's literally played 3 games this past year and needed to develop a lot more than he was already coming into the year. And then, again, didn't get the experience and didn't show out as much as we would hope for in the 3 games he did play. 56, Jacksonville Jaguars. This is their first selection. Again, tight end could be in the mix. They lost valiantly. They did a great job, and they've shown some insane potential for people to get genuinely terrified of them down the line. So I don't think there's very many issues that this team needs to address. I'm honestly just going to go after best player available, which to me is getting a reliable, heavy, physical boundary corner for the future, and that's going to be Julian Neal, cornerback out of Arkansas, 6'2", 210, like, good movement skills. Number 57 for the Bears, Caden McDonald was the first-round selection. I do think getting a reliable safety is a good idea here. However, like, Halsey doesn't have the athleticism I'm looking for. Saab is a little bit early. Kamari is someone that you're having to take from, it's essentially a position change from him being nickel back to being safety, which is, again, a little bit early here in round 2. Mikhail Kamara is intriguing. The problem with him is he's under the 6'5" frame. So I would be looking at like Malachi Lawrence in round 3 and, probably going off of that. LT Overton would be a fun one for the Bears, but he also is someone who I just don't think exudes round 2 talent at the moment, which sucks to say, but is what it is. The guards, we've siphoned them off. Running back, and we siphoned those off. Like, don't really think there's much of a choice there. Not a good spot for the Bears, if I'm just being completely honest. We actually might have to go after edge at this point. LT Overton could get the Bama boost. Like, he is 6'5", 280. He's not a bad player at all. He's been a phenomenal run stopper, and that is kind of what you should try to continue keeping is a run defense identity. Derek Moore, if you want to get more, actually, Derek Moore is a good choice. He's the more of the pass rushing focused edge from Michigan, who's also 260. He's in that 6'3" range, but he is definitely somebody who will be well liked there in Chicago. 58 for the Niners. First pick was Caden Proctor. I'm going Omar Cooper Jr. here for the Niners. I do know there's some people who really want to go after interior defensive line. I think that's perfectly fine, but Omar Cooper Jr., the value at this point, you can't ignore it. 59 for the Texans. Jadarian Price, Christian Miller. Let's fix the offensive line. We need to go and do it. Jennings Dunker, definitely somebody who I think would be a great choice. A lot of people love Chase Bizontis. They have him as like a top 50 player. It is what it is. I think he has some flashy plays. I don't know how well it translates, but Carter Smith's going to be the player I go after. He's been such a reliable left tackle and has gotten better year after year. Just ends up having a blocking style that kicks to the interior so much better than it does to the boundary. Number 60 for the Bills. First pick was Josiah Trotter. Got to get some wide receiver help at this point. Why not get the most consistent wide receiver in the draft, damn near, in Jeremy Bernard? He's not going to blow you away in the majority of aspects except after the catch, but he's just Mr. Reliable in everything, and I like to go after a Mr. Reliable once in a while. 61 for the Rams. Mekhi Lemon, Colton Hood. That's just perfect. I mean, you just need that. Offensive line wise, you can end up trying to upgrade there at this point, trying to take some pot shots. I do think safety, though, at this point with AJ Halsey is going to be great. I mean, he's a heavy hitter. He's 220 pounds, like just a reliable deep option that you could end up bringing into the box and just kind of using like Cam Curl should have been used or is being used, excuse me. Number 62, New England Patriots. Cassius Howell was their first round selection. Very happy with that. Again, I feel comfortable with the idea of maybe taking Isaiah World here, putting him at left guard and seeing how he ends up growing and developing. And, you can end up possibly kicking him to tackle if need be. Pretty sure he has some background in offensive tackle or right tackle based on what he played at San Diego. Did he play at San Diego State? I know he played at Nevada, but San Diego State was actually last year with Josh Simmons. Wow, I ended up repeating something I said last year. But you know what? Screw the offensive line. We have Jacob Rodriguez here. We're going to take him out of Texas Tech. The Cassius Howell, Jacob Rodriguez combo to me just seems like a little bit more of a higher return on investment. 63 for the Denver Broncos. First pick was CJ Allen. Wide receiver wise, I do think they're going to try to go after a dynamic weapon at this point. And after the catch, especially with the average depth of target for Bo Nix being low, I want to go after somebody who can be a home run hitter. Zachariah Branch out of Georgia is the pick there, which might have been exactly what I did last week, which is funny because I did not expect that. I thought it was almost like a novel idea of mine. At 64 and ending off the draft, we have the Seattle Seahawks. And, first pick was Brandon Sisse. We need to address the right guard spot. Chase Bizontis is probably going to be the player I go after. Kobe Baines, I love him to death. He's actually a really good guy. I've been able to talk with him outside as well. You know what? A lot of people like Jennings Dunker. He's been in a zone blocking system. I think you should trade back and get him, but for the sake of this, we're going to take him here, and that's going to be the video. It's a long one. I ended up just taking a little more time to yap, but you guys know I love being able to hang out and talk with you guys. I hope you guys had a wonderful time. Thank you for showing the love that you always do. I'll see you later. Peace.